Okay, so today's episode we're going to be working on our camera, and in the previous episode we started working on building an actual level after we've got our tile rules sorted out. I think we might go back and make a few more of those today, depending on how well our camera goes. But in today's episode we are going to work on getting our camera to try and follow our player so that when we move our player in the game along the level, the camera actually follows it and we can actually follow along with the player and doesn't just disappear off the screen. So we're going to try and do that today. It's just going to be a simple one, so it's not going to be very complicated. It's just going to be a few lines of code just for like testing purposes so that we can work our way through our test level. And then later on when we add in like different levels within the level, if that makes sense. So when we don't not just going to have like one plain straight level, we're going to have like going up and going down and things like that, going into holes and different things like that. So once we've done that, we'll go and change our camera script. So let's get started by working on with our camera. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make a script. Now I don't know if we have a camera script. No, we don't. So let's go and create a new C# script. Let's call this camera. It doesn't need to be caps. Say camera follow, just so that we know what it does, because we might add another camera script to the camera later on. But let's do that, and then let's open the script up, and then we can get working in there. So on our camera, I'm just going to drag that on directly so that we don't forget to do that. So whatever we do in the script should now affect the camera. So what we're going to need is we're going to need a few things. We're going to need a a follow target. So a target is going to be our player character in this case, and then we're also going to need a speed, so the speed that we want the camera to follow the player. And then we also going to need like an offset, because we don't want the camera to be on top of our player. We want there to be some kind of distance between the player and the camera itself. So we're going to add in a vector 3 offset, and then we can go and set that in the inspector, and we'll go play around with it and see what we can come up with and what the best thing is to do. So to do that, let's go create a serialize field. This is going to be a transform, private transform target. So that's we're gonna have to drag in our player into that. The next one is also going to be a serialized private. I believe this one's going to be a float, and this doesn't need to be. We don't really need to have this as serialized, because we don't really need to access it in the script, in the inspector. But just to actually, you know what? Let's just go and get rid of that. Because I believe if we do that, then when we change it in the inspector, it doesn't really reflect it if it's set up here. I think that's the problem I've had before. So for now, we'll just say private float smooth speed, and we'll set that equal to 0.25 for now. That's going to be a float, so that is going to be how smooth our camera moves from when the start of our player moves. So it's going to take, you'll see, I believe the higher the number is, the more delay, or it could be the other way around. We'll see when we go and play around with it. Okay, so the next one is going to be serialized field, and this is going to this is going to be serialized, because we need to go and play around with this for our offset. So this is going to be a vector 3, and then we'll just say offset. So this, we need to go and figure out what that is. So those are the only 3 things we need. Now we are going to be doing this in our fixed update method, and in here what we have to do is we have to figure out what our desired position is, and to get that we're going to use our player. So let's just drag this into here. So for our desired position, we're going to use our player, and our player plus the offset that we're going to set for our camera. So we're going to have our player here, for example. Where's our player? Is over there. Say, for example, our player is here in the middle of the scene, kind of. What we want is we want the offset of the camera to be slightly behind it. So our player is on the Z position of 0. Let's put it on Z position of 0, Y position of 0, and then a X at -6. Actually, it doesn't really have to be it doesn't. We don't have to round it off. The main position we're focusing on here is the Z position. So we'll use, if we go into our main camera now, we should see a few fields in here that we can go and set. So now we don't really want an offset on our x-axis, we don't want one on our y-axis, but we do want one on the z-axis. So for now, let's just go and say, we'll put this at -10, because you can see we got it set at -10 for now, and we'll set that back to 0. We'll save that. I don't know if that's going to work. Then we need to go and drag in our player into our target position here, so that we know what we're following. So anything you drag into there is what the camera will follow if it's moving. If it's not moving, then it's just going to stay stationary. So what we have to do here is we have to go and say vector 3. This is going to be our desired position. So we're going to say desired position is going to be equal to our target dot position plus the offset. So it's just going to add, technically it's just going to change the y value of our camera to -10, because that's what we've set down here. So that will allow our camera to, it's just going to push it this way. So if you look in here, I don't know if I can make this bigger. Okay, I can't, but look in here, you can see that this is what our camera is looking at. So if we set our camera's position to be equal to 0, you can see that we don't have anything in our camera, because the camera is now on the other side of our game. So if we set this to 10, we don't really need it to be that far, but we'll just do that for safety. We could probably just set that to like, what is it, like 2 maybe? Sorry, it's going the opposite way, so it's going to be -1. So we could just set it to -1 and it should work, but just for safety reasons, because we might add different layers later on in the game, like different objects to be in front of the player, and so that when the player moves throughout the level, it actually looks like it's moving behind certain objects like houses and trees and stuff. So just to be safe for now, and us not having to go and change it later on, we will set that equal to -10. So I'm just going to set our default position to be 1, and then for our Z value, I'm going to change it to be equal to -9, so that when it adds it, it should go to -10. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but we'll set that like that. So now let's go and test this out. So what do we have to do now? Have we finished our code? No, we haven't. Okay, so we got our desired position. Now we need to go and tell, we need to go and get the smooth position. So we need to tell our camera to move from point A to point B. So to do this, let's go and say vector 3, and this is going to be our smoothed position, and that's going to be equal to a vector 3, and we're going to lerp it so it moves from point A to point B. And vector, no, what's it going to be? It's going to be it's going to be the current position, so transform dot position, and then we want to give it the point where it needs to go, which is going to be our desired position, and then we also need to give it our smooth speed. So we tell it to go from there to point A to point B within that time. Okay, so now what we have to do is we need to go and tell our camera to move to that position. So let's go and say transform dot position is going to be equal to our smoothed position. So let's go and save that, and let's go test that out. So now we should have some kind of camera movement when we start the game off. So the camera's going to move into position. There it is. Now forget about the Y offset. We could probably just change. Let's just fiddle around with that and say, let's set it to about 2.7, 2.7, and that should be fine. So that should look good now. Okay, that's fine. Now when we move from left to right, you can see that the camera is now moving smoothly with our player. So if we go throughout the level, you can see the camera moves nicely. So there is a little bit of a delay. So let's go and decrease that to about minus 0.125 and see what that actually does. Does that make it look better, or does it make it look worse? I I mean, there's not that big of a difference, but we'll leave it like that. So yeah, that's looking good. Now the only thing we have to do now is figure out later on in the series, when we have multiple levels, what the best way to do that is, because I think if we have, for example, if we have like a drop off, I'm just going to fall off the edge over here just to kind of demonstrate. But if we have like a drop off over here somewhere, we can, you'll see that our player actually disappears off of the screen. Now, because that is like a endless fall, obviously we'll never see the player again. But for times, for example, if we have kind of like a drop off where the player drops off into like a dungeon or something, we're gonna want the camera to stick with the player. So we're gonna want the player to actually be on screen most of the time, or in fact all of the time. But we'll deal with that later. So today we are going to, or now we've got a basic movement for our camera. Let's go back to working on our tile rules. So I haven't done any research into this, but I came up with an idea in creating a secondary tile rule. So what we have at the moment is I think we have one tile rule, which is over here. So we have this grass tile rule. So let's go onto our grid. So we can paint with this tile rule, which is one of these. I think it's both of them, to be honest. So if we paint anything like that, you can see that we automatically get a level drawn out for us. Something like that. But what we want to try and do is we want to try and introduce some other tiles. For example, we have a big tile palette here, and it's full of awesome things like some spikes, different grounds that we could use, and then what do we want? What else do we want? Yeah, just different corners that we can use and stuff like that. So we had a problem in yesterday's episode when making our first tile rule. We didn't really know how to use our spikes. Now we can do the obvious, and that is by, where is it? If we go to our grid, you can see tile map. Where's our tile map? Here it is. So we can do something like, let's just put this over here. We can simply select our spikes and place them in like that. But now you can see that if we play the game, we ignore this bit at the top. I don't know why I did that, but you can see that it's not really working properly because we don't want these bits over here. We want them to be a sudden drop like one of these, and then just have spikes next to it so that you actually have to jump over it. So I came up with an idea. I don't even know if this is going to work, but let's go and try and make a different tile rule. So first of all, let's go and get rid of all of these. We don't really need them. What am I doing? Let's get rid of these. Okay, there you go. So we'll get rid of all of these, and then let's test it out. So let's go to our assets, tile rules, and let's create another 2D rule tile. Okay, so this is going to be called our spike. So let's open this up. Now we can drag this into here just so that we don't forget. So we'll put that next to it. Okay, we'll do it later. But let's go and get our tile set. And now we want a default tile to be our spike. So we'll drag that into there. Okay, so let's test this out. What do we want here? We want... we're going to have one, I guess. Actually, two. Let's start off with two and see if we need any more. So we are going to want, for our spikes, we're not going to have anything on top of them. Let's just put one of these in here for now, just so that we can see what we're going to want. Okay, so this is just for like testing purposes. So can we get rid of this grid, because it's kind of annoying me. How do we get rid of this grid? Anyway, it's not that important. Let's just unselect it. Okay, so, or we can just go into our game and then just zoom this in a little bit like that. No, clearly you can't. Okay, so let's go to our scene. Okay, so let's work on this. So for our, where's our tile rule? Okay, so here's our tile rule. Now, we are not going to want anything, well, that's the problem. We are going to want something on the side. So let's say, let's do this. If we go to our tile rule and drag this into here, then we should be able to use this. So if we drag that into there, why can't I drag that in there? That's a bit weird. Grid, how do I get back to that? Okay, so let's select it. Okay, let's just default game object. Let's drag that into there. Maybe that's why it didn't really set before. So tile set 1. Let's drag in our default tile, which is going to be this one. Drag that into there. I mean, that doesn't really work. How come the first one worked, but this one doesn't? Let's go back to our first one that we made and test this one out. So grass rule, none. Okay. I mean, that works. Okay, let's make it first and then see what we can do. Okay, so for our spikes, we're not going to want anything. Okay, so we can have something at the bottom. We're going to have something on each side. We're not going to want anything on the top. But we are going to want the side. Okay, so let's work with our side ones first. So let's go to tile set and then let's drag in. Which one do we want? Okay, let's play around with this. So for these ones, let's add those there just for testing. And then what we'd want, oh, okay, so we probably want, yeah, that's what we want. So let's go and get rid of these. And then we can go and let's just fill that in like that. Okay, so we're going to try and make this with our tile rule. Okay, so let's go back. We'll get there eventually. So for our spike, we need to drag in this guy. So where's that guy? That one should be our spike. So here it is. So let's drag. Why do I keep doing that? We need to lock that. So let's lock that and let's create another inspector. Why can't I make another inspector? I did that the other day. Okay, so let's see. Let's try this. Try that again. Actually, we probably don't need to make another one, but let's just go and lock it. Okay, so first one, let's drag in this one. So this one needs to be over there. So now this one is going to, what it's going to have, it has to have something on the right because it has to have a spike. It can have something on the left. It can't have anything on top. Probably like that, maybe. And then let's do the opposite to the other one. So that, and then nothing on top, and then something like that. Okay, so here we have our tile. So let's go and drag that in now and see if that works. Okay, that's not what we wanted, but all right. So now let's drag in another one and see. 3. Let's bring in our sprite. So let's use this one. Okay, so for our tile, we don't want anything on top. Okay, now let's drag that on top and see. Drag that on top. Nope. Okay, so let's see. Our sprite, for our spikes, we're gonna need to have something on both sides, and then something on the bottom. Okay, so clearly this is not working. So that's working for. Oh, that's why we've got two of the same one. So let's drag this one into there and see if that works. No, that doesn't work. Oh, so this needs to be the opposite. Okay, so that's fine. And then let's see if we bring that to the top. Okay, there we go. So that's what we want. So that works now, which is great. So let's see if we delete that, we should be able to use that tile rule in our game. So let's go back to our grid. And now we should, I'm just going to paint one over here somewhere. So we should be able to grab this one and then just paint some stripes over there. Okay, so now we need to update this one. So now we need to pull in, I believe it's one of these. So let's go and create another two, so 3, 4, 5. Now let's see, where do we want it? We want this one into here, and then this one in, no, we've just done that one. No, that one in there. Now for this one, let's go to, okay, let's try and guess. So we're not going to have anything on top. We are going to have something on either side. And then possibly something on each side. Okay, so let's see. Nope, let's move it down. Let's have a look and see in our other one. Where do we put the first one? So let's unlock that and then let's test this out. Okay, so our simple one, the normal one is going to be, it's going to be third in line. Okay, and it only has to have 2 on either side and nothing on the top. So let's go back to this one. So 2 on either side like that. And then maybe if we do this. Nope, that doesn't work. So we're going to have to try and figure out how to get them to work together. So let's see, where is it? This one, I believe, is this one here. And that one can have something on the left. It can, so it's going to stay blank. Let's get rid of that one because we don't need that one. And I believe this one needs to be this. Okay, so that's fine. Now let's see, that one, you can get rid of those two because that's fine. What happens if we move it down? It's probably got something just to do with the order of the way they're being sorted out, but we're going to have to go and fiddle around with that and see if we can get it to work. So I'll do that in my spare time, and then in the next episode I'll tell you how to fix that, and then we can carry on working from there. But that's going to be it for today's video. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please go ahead and subscribe by pressing this button over here, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. So thanks for watching. Goodbye.